You know, when we picture identity theft, we almost always default to the exact same cinematic image. It's like a shadowy hacker in a dark basement typing furiously to break through a firewall.
Right, the classic movie trope.
Exactly. But the reality is far less dramatic and honestly a lot more tedious. There are between 8 and 15 million cases of identity theft every single year.
Which is a staggering number.
It really is. And for a massive chunk of those cases, the culprit isn't some sophisticated cyber attack. It is the incredibly mundane junk mail and the old medical bills sitting in a cardboard box in your closet right now.
It's the ultimate blind spot. I mean, we will spend hundreds of dollars on antivirus software, right?
Right.
And we obsess over two-factor authentication.
Oh, for sure.
But we completely ignore the physical paper trail we leave behind every single day. We kind of treat our physical trash like a black hole. Like once it goes in the bin, we assume it just ceases to exist.
Which is exactly what we are going to tear apart today. So welcome to today's deep dive. We're exploring a hidden ecosystem that operates right under our noses.
An entire industry built strictly around the destruction of paper.
Yeah, and today's exploration is driven by some incredibly detailed materials from a Boston area company called Neighborhood Parcel, which also operates as mydocumentshredding.com.
Yeah, they run a dedicated secure shredding service.
Right. And what caught my eye about them isn't just that they've maintained a zero breach record since 2007. It's how their entire business model really exposes the massive vulnerabilities in our everyday routines.
Vulnerabilities most people don't even realize they have until it's, well, far too late. Throwing away a simple piece of paper is actually this high-stakes battlefield.
It really is.
It touches on strict legal compliance, environmental impact, and, intense personal security.
And for you listening, our goal today is to help you navigate this minefield without wasting your entire weekend feeding a cheap plastic machine.
Right, we want to save you that headache.
But before we get into the mechanics of destroying documents, we have to look at what we are actually hoarding. I like to think of it as a household paper iceberg.
Oh, that's a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
I mean, the visible tip of the iceberg is the obvious stuff.
Right, the things you actively know you should protect. Your tax returns, a current bank statement, maybe like a photocopy of your passport. We all know those are dangerous.
Exactly.
But below the surface, it's just this massive, quiet accumulation of daily life. It's canceled checks from a closed account, pay stubs from 3 jobs ago, or, mortgage documents for a house you paid off a decade ago.
It just piles up quietly in the background.
It does. But I have to push back a little on some of the risks highlighted in our research today. I mean, I completely understand why a bank statement is dangerous.
Sure.
But they list things like dental billing statements, prescription receipts, school enrollment forms, and everyday home repair invoices as major security risks. Frankly, who actually cares about my old dental bill?
Well, what's fascinating here is that if you think of identity theft as a bank heist, yeah, a dental bill seems completely useless.
Right, because it doesn't have my social security number or my routing digits.
Exactly. But modern identity thieves don't operate like bank robbers looking for one golden document to break the vault. They operate like puzzle solvers.
Oh, wow, okay.
They stitch together a comprehensive profile of you from tiny, seemingly insignificant data points.
So they aren't looking for the whole picture in one document. They're just looking for, the edge pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's take that old dental bill. No, it doesn't have your social security number, but it does have your exact service address. It has your insurance provider's name, your account number with that provider, and usually a partial or full date of birth.
Which is already a lot of information.
Right. Now take a home repair invoice from your recycling bin. That shows your signature, your phone number, and maybe even notes about when you are typically not home to let the plumber in.
Oh, that's creepy.
A thief takes these fragmented data points, combines them, and suddenly they have enough verified information to initiate a socially engineered attack.
Meaning they use those mundane details to call up a bank or a credit card company and pretend to be you.
Yes. They call a customer service representative and say, hey, I lost my card. I need a replacement sent to a new address.
And then the rep asks security questions.
Exactly. And the thief can casually confirm your insurance provider, your previous address, your date of birth, your phone number. They use the boring details to build credibility.
That is wild.
And this jigsaw puzzle method of stolen information, it costs victims well over $100 billion a year.
Wait, $100 billion just from stitched together trash?
Yes. every single year.
Which brings me to the reality check that genuinely stopped me at my tracks today. There is no law against dumpster diving.
None. It is a complete free-for-all once that paper leaves your house.
I think most people, myself included, operate under the assumption that because a trash can is sitting on their property line or because it's their personal and municipal bin, the contents are legally protected.
Right, you assume it's still yours.
But the moment your trash hits the curb, you completely forfeit your right to privacy.
The Supreme Court actually established this decades ago. They ruled that placing trash on the curb for collection is an explicit abandonment of your expectation of privacy.
So anyone can just walk up to it.
Anyone, a private investigator, a nosy neighbor, or a dedicated identity thief can legally take your trash bags, load them into their car, sort through them at their kitchen table, and keep whatever they find.
And the police can't do anything about it.
The police cannot stop them. The trash can is quite literally your greatest vulnerability when it comes to data security.
So, if the trash is legally fair game, the logical conclusion for you, the homeowner, is to destroy it yourself before it ever reaches that curb.
Yeah, truly.
And we are all familiar with the classic home office shredder. You know, it sits in the corner, it's incredibly loud, and using it makes you feel like you are being super responsible.
Yeah, everybody has one.
But the argument in the sources against the do-it-yourself approach is surprisingly aggressive. Relying on a home shredder is essentially a productivity trap, and worse, a massive false sense of security.
Well, people tend to look at the upfront cost of a professional shredding service and think, why would I pay for that? I could just buy a machine at an office supply store for $40.
Exactly.
But they are completely ignoring the mechanical reality of those cheap machines and the massive sink of their own personal time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because trying to shred a decade of accumulated tax returns and medical records with a home shredder is it's like trying to mow a massive golf course with a pair of nail clippers.
That is a very accurate comparison.
The volume is just completely mismatched to the tool.
Because home machines simply aren't built for continuous duty cycles. They're built with cheap plastic gears and very weak motors.
Right.
If you try to power through a stack of old bank statements, they jam the second they hit a staple or a paperclip. That means you have to sit there manually removing every single piece of metal before feeding the paper in.
And usually only 3 or 4 sheets at a time. And even if you meticulously remove all the staples, the machine itself is going to fight you. They have these thermal overload switches. You shred for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, the motor overheats, and it completely shuts down.
And then you're stuck waiting 20 to 30 minutes for it to cool off.
Yeah. A project you thought would take an hour ends up consuming your entire weekend.
But the time sink isn't even the biggest problem here. The real issue is the output. Most standard home shredders produce what is called strip cut paper.
Where they just slice the document into long, vertical spaghetti strands.
Right. Which feels secure when you look at a pile of it in the plastic bin, but it's really just a vertical jigsaw puzzle.
Right. They can put strip cuts back together?
Oh, it's an incredibly easy puzzle to solve. The text context isn't actually destroyed, it is merely separated. Security researchers have proven over and over again that strip-cut documents can be quickly reconstructed.
You're kidding.
No, there are basic, off-the-shelf software programs that can scan those strips and perfectly match the text lines back together. And honestly, you don't even need software. A dedicated identity thief with a lot of patience, a flat surface, and a roll of tape can rebuild a strip-cut document in a matter of hours.
Which completely defeats the purpose of shredding it in the first place. You've just given the thief a slightly more annoying arts and crafts project.
Pretty much.
So the professional alternative, what Neighborhood Parcel offers, is industrial-grade destruction. We are talking about massive, facility-sized machines that use cross-cut and microcut technology to turn paper into literal confetti.
Right, they handle heavy-duty staples, binder clips, entire file folders automatically.
You just hand over the boxes. They have drop-off locations in Massachusetts towns like Tewksbury and Lowell, or they offer mobile trucks that come right to your driveway. But I did notice a slight discrepancy in the pricing structure during our research today.
Oh, what stood out to you?
In one of the promotional YouTube breakdowns, it mentioned rates starting at 89 cents a pound. But the broader corporate documentation repeatedly cites 99 cents a pound for residential service. It seems like a minor detail, but I think it points to how these services actually structure their logistics.
That's a great catch, actually. And it really comes down to the logistics of transport.
Right.
The 89-cent rate is generally applied when you do the legwork yourself. bringing your boxes directly to their primary processing facility, like the Lowell office, where they don't have to dispatch a truck or cover fuel and transportation surcharges.
Okay.
The 99-cent tier applies to the broader network of drop-off spots or mobile services where the company is taking on the transportation costs.
That makes perfect sense. But regardless of whether you are paying 89 or 99 cents, the actual value proposition of a professional service isn't just the physical destruction of the paper. It is the legal documentation of that destruction.
Yes.
Professional services provide you with a notarized certificate of destruction.
And that single piece of paper is vital because it actively shifts your liability.
How so?
Let's say you are handling an estate cleanup after a relative passes away, and you have decades of their financial history. Or you run a small home-based business, and you are undergoing an audit. You need absolute proof that sensitive records were handled properly.
Right, and a home shredder doesn't give you a receipt.
Exactly. It doesn't prove anything. A notarized certificate of destruction is a legally binding document that proves to an auditor or a judge that you fulfilled your duty to protect that information.
And having that certificate isn't just about a homeowner sleeping better at night. Here's where it gets really interesting. It is intimately tied to the fact that state and federal governments have essentially deputized all of us as data protectors.
The heavy hand of the law is aggressively coming down on household and office clutter.
It really is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the landscape has fundamentally changed. The burden of privacy used to be on the government or, massive financial institutions. Now, the law dictates that everyday individuals and small business owners are entirely responsible for protecting the data they possess.
Like in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, for example, they have enacted incredibly strict state data security regulations.
Wow.
We're talking about Massachusetts 201 CMR 17.00 and New Hampshire RSA 359 CIC 20.
Very strict regulations.
Yeah, these laws explicitly mandate that personal information must be rendered entirely unreadable before disposal. And they make it crystal clear that throwing intact documents into ordinary trash or an open municipal recycling bin does not meet that standard.
Not even close. And the state is not messing around with enforcement.
Right.
If a local real estate agent tosses a client's mortgage pre-approval into a public trash can, or a small business throws employee tax forms into a dumpster, the fines in Massachusetts can reach up to $5,000 per incident.
$5,000 just for throwing a piece of paper away improperly.
Per incident.
That is insane. And on the federal level, you have the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, better known as HIPAA. We always think of HIPAA in terms of digital health portals, but it applies strictly to physical paper, too.
Oh, absolutely.
If a small medical office or a local therapist just tosses patient files in the dumpster, the federal fines can be absolutely catastrophic, like easily bankrupting a practice.
The underlying logic of these laws is that negligence with physical paper is just as damaging to a person's life as a highly sophisticated digital data breach.
The financial ruin and the emotional toll on the victim are exactly the same.
Exactly. Therefore, the penalty for the business or individual who was negligent with the paper is aligned with those digital breaches.
But the threat isn't always an external identity thief digging through a dumpster at midnight. The internal threat to businesses is just as severe, if not more so.
Oh, for sure.
A major weakness for companies isn't just outside hackers, it's their own disgruntled employees. It's the everyday threat of an upset worker quietly taking internal memos, meeting notes, or raw customer lists right out of the office recycling bin.
It is actually one of the most common ways new rival companies are formed.
Really?
Yeah. An employee decides they're going to leave and start their own competing firm. Over their last 2 weeks, they just casually grab the client roster or the pricing sheets from the unsecured blue recycling bin under a coworker's desk.
Just right out of the bin.
They walk out the door and they start calling those clients the very next day. Implementing a strict shred-all policy with secure, locked consoles is often the only barrier preventing an upset employee from walking away with the core intellectual property of a business.
Wow. Okay, so you have to shred your documents to satisfy state and federal law, protect your personal identity, and secure your business from internal theft.
That's the baseline.
But once millions of pounds of paper are chewed up by these massive industrial machines, we have to look at the physical aftermath. Where does it all actually go?
This is a crucial piece of the puzzle, especially when you compare it to the DIY approach. Think about the office worker who feeds paper into a personal strip-cut shredder at their desk. What happens when that little plastic bin gets full?
They usually just dump the confetti right into the regular office trash, or they dump it into a municipal recycling bin.
And that is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Municipal recycling facilities typically cannot process loose, shredded paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the tiny strips fall right through the sorting screens, they gunk up the machinery, and they end up cross-contaminating other materials.
So what do the municipal facilities do with it?
They just sweep it up and send it to a landfill, all that effort to recycle, and it ends up in the garbage anyway.
That is incredibly frustrating. But professional services operate on a completely different scale. Neighborhood Parcel, for example, recycles 100% of their waste. Because they are generating massive industrial-sized bales of microcut paper, they can bypass the municipal sorting facilities entirely and send those bales directly to paper mills to be pulped down and turned into products like tissue paper or cardboard.
And the environmental scale of this direct pipeline is staggering. The conservation metrics are incredible when you bypass the landfill.
They really are. For every single ton of paper that goes through the secure industrial recycling process, the environmental savings are massive. You save 7,000 gallons of water. You save between 17 and 31 mature trees.
Wow.
You save 4,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, which is enough to power an average home for months, and you prevent 60 pounds of airborne pollutants from being expelled into the atmosphere.
That's amazing.
So for you, the listener, there is a massive dual victory here. By securely destroying your documents, you are aggressively protecting your credit score and legal liability, but you are also actively saving dozens of trees and conserving thousands of gallons of water.
It takes an annoying administrative chore and turns it into a highly tangible environmental benefit.
Exactly.
It perfectly aligns personal security with environmental stewardship. You protect yourself, and you protect the ecosystem in one single action.
It's a win-win.
But alongside the environmental impact, there is one specific service offered by Neighborhood Parcel that taps into something much deeper, something profoundly psychological. They offer a service called witnessed shredding.
Yes, this completely fascinated me. They offer this by appointment at their Tewksbury location. You actually bring your boxes of documents into the facility and you stand there to watch them be physically destroyed in real time.
Right in front of you.
But there is a minimum charge of $75 just to do it. And on the surface, it sounds a bit extreme. Like, why would someone pay a $75 minimum just to stand in an industrial warehouse and watch paper get chewed up by a machine?
Well, this raises an important question. Because we live in a world where data management is entirely invisible. We upload files to a cloud server we've never seen, we empty the digital trash bin on our desktop, and we just have to blindly trust that the information is actually gone.
Right.
But when you are dealing with something deeply personal and emotionally heavy, say, the financial disclosures of a highly contentious divorce, the medical history of a complex illness, or the estate papers of a parent who just passed away, that level of blind digital trust simply isn't enough.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the emotional weight of an estate cleanup. You need a physical confirmation. You need to see it to believe it.
Exactly. Watching the physical destruction of those highly sensitive documents closes an open anxiety loop in the human brain. It provides absolute, undeniable closure.
Yeah.
You aren't just taking a company's word for it, and you aren't trusting an invisible cloud server. You are standing there physically watching your liability, your risk, and sometimes your emotional baggage get permanently erased.
So for someone dealing with a highly stressful corporate audit or a painful legal situation, paying $75 for that immediate visceral peace of mind isn't a premium charge.
No, it's an absolute bargain.
Closing the anxiety loop. I love that. It takes a loud, messy industrial process and frames it as a genuine form of psychological relief.
It's the ultimate period at the end of a very stressful sentence.
Let's take a moment to look back at the surprisingly complex journey we've been on today. We started by exploring how innocent household clutter, that submerged part of our paper iceberg, can provide the exact puzzle pieces an identity thief needs to socially engineer their way into your bank account.
The edge pieces.
Right. And then we pulled apart the false security, the jammed gears, and the strip-cut vulnerabilities of the classic home shredder.
The golf course and the nail clippers.
Exactly. We navigated the heavy-handed legal landscapes of state and federal regulations, where a single piece of mishandled paper can result in crippling fines. And finally, we looked at the massive environmental triumph of industrial recycling and the profound psychological closure of physically watching your worries get shredded into confetti.
It really forces you to reevaluate every single piece of mail that comes through your slot, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So, to you listening, as you head into this weekend and you start sorting through the mail on your kitchen counter, oops. I mean, when you start sorting through that mail and you grab that pre-approved credit card offer or that explanation of benefits from your doctor's office, before you just toss it into the regular trash bin, remember the Supreme Court. The very second that bin hits the curb, your privacy is completely stripped away.
It belongs to whoever has the patience to dig through it. And that leads me to a final thought for you to mull over. We've spent all this time today deeply exploring the tangible risks of physical paper, the legal requirement to destroy it, and the psychological relief of watching it be physically shredded.
Right.
But as our lives inevitably migrate toward an entirely paperless existence, what exactly is the digital equivalent of dumpster diving? And more importantly, how do you completely and permanently shred a digital footprint when there is no physical drop-off location to visit and no machine to watch?
Oh, wow. That is a brilliant and slightly terrifying question to leave off on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the everyday systems around you, and we will catch you next time.